All right.
Welcome back, everyone, to the David Lynch Theater of the Mind. It's not quite the Temple of Technology, but it does work for us. It's another fine episode, off delayed, of So Here's the Deal with myself and McJulie, where we are going to talk about the short films of David Lynch, as you see at the bottom there, from 1967 to 1974. This represents his student work before he gathered distribution and wide range. But these works, as we talked about in our last episode, really inform how he approaches filmmaking, and they show the basis of him being able to get films like The Elephant Man and Dune and Wild at Heart later on. So it also introduces our cast of regular Lynch characters throughout these pieces. So, including Lynch himself in his very first on-screen acting role. My least favorite of these films. So, Julie and I watched 4 films that were included here on the ERASERHEAD Blu-ray. They are Six Figures Getting Sick from 1966, The Alphabet from 1968, The Grandmother from 1970, and The Amputee from 1974. We were just talking about how we wanted to approach these, and we kind of settled on let's just talk about them. There's not a lot of deep meaning to most of these, but there is some good stuff in there. So, following our format, I'll read the Wikipedia page for Six Figures Getting Sick, and we begin. It was originally a 1-minute color animated film with 6 loops shown on a sculpted screen of 3 human-shaped figures, based on casts of Lynch's own head as done by sculptor Jack Fisk. It intentionally distorted the film. The animation depicted 6 people getting sick, their stomachs grew, and their heads would catch fire. And it is indeed, it goes over and over and over again for a while. What did you think about Six Figures Getting Sick?
I I thought it was interesting. Um I would say if I wanted to put it in a David Lynch context, I do think that Six Figures Getting Sick and also The Amputee both have that theme, a recurring Lynchian theme of being fairly unflinching at looking at issues of like these sort of grotesque issues, like people who are very grotesque in appearance or really over the top emotions. And I think that in his commercial, um, as he got a little more commercial, I think that he did less stuff that was kind of viscerally unpleasant the way this is, and the way some of the stuff in The Amputee, Figures Getting Sick, and actually Eraserhead all have this kind of there's an element of just kind of grossness, especially with the sounds. He often does these kind of unpleasantly wet sounds that I think are, well, interestingly enough, a much more recent movie, the Substance,
Yeah.
I think has a very Lynchian use of grotesque sounds. So it works. It makes people feel viscerally uncomfortable.
I would agree with that assessment. And where Six Men Getting Sick really works for me is that he just hammers you with it, right? There's a point at which you think, all right, there can't really be anything more to this, and then it goes again, and then it goes again. I mean, the title is Six Men Getting Sick, in parentheses, 6 times, And each time it gets more and more absurd to the point where you're going, oh, maybe something different will happen this time, or maybe some weird thing will go on. There's a point where I think trees grow out of them and their heads catch on fire, and it's really weird. And this is a 1966 animation. And we've talked in previous episodes about how Lynch became a filmmaker because he's an artist and he wanted to see his pictures move. And this is 100% his pictures moving.
Yeah, that was something I noticed in several of the short films that he stopped. Essentially, he stopped doing. I think,
Yeah.
by the time of Eraserhead, there's not really it doesn't have drawn animation the same way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's more puppetry. Well, he had money. And that's a big motivator. When you have money, you can do a lot more stuff.
What I also thought was interesting is that, for the most part, I don't think of David Lynch as having a 60s aesthetic sensibility. Because I think of, he is surrealist. 60s psychedelia had a surrealist aspect, but I don't think of David Lynch and 60s psychedelia as having anything to do with each other normally. But a few of these, the short films, The Grandmother, The Alphabet, The Six Men Getting Sick, the quality of the animation, I think, is reminiscent of, for example, um, the Yellow Submarine type of animation.
Mm-hmm.
Where it's this kind of, where it's this very, it's not trying to depict a realistic uh, environment with the animation. It's flowers growing out of people's heads and that kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's pretty much what we have to say about that. It's a 6-minute film. You can see it on the Eraserhead disc. It said here, this is really good. It cost $200 to make. So that's a nice big budget production there, $200. And he did this in film school before. Actually, he did it in art school before he went to film school. And as he did the next picture, The Alphabet, which he made in 1968. It has animation and live action. It's 4 minutes long. And it is essentially a little girl having a bad dream. And the dream goes certain ways, and then the alphabet starts coming out of her in weird audio. Which is a true to life story that his wife's niece would do this in her sleep.
Oh, interesting. I
Yeah.
didn't know that.
And why the alphabet is important to David Lynch is because of what he did with this film. He got invited to the American Film Institute, where he made The Grandmother and Eraserhead. So without the alphabet, he wouldn't have got money, but also film education and being able to go and do more art and evolve himself that way. So he might still be a painter in Philadelphia.
So, the alphabet is Gateway Lynch.
Gateway Lynch, yeah. And it's one of the reasons why I was willing to come back and do these things, is because of the alphabet and because of The Grandmother. Because The Grandmother is what Mel Brooks saw that made him think, oh, I can hire this guy to do movies. And other people who had seen The Grandmother were able to glom on to, well, what are you doing next? Well, I did this film. I did Eraserhead. And then because they liked The Grandmother, they went to see Eraserhead. And then Eraserhead went big-ish and brought us David Lynch, as he is between us right there.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, yeah,
Wrong
exactly.
direction.
Oh, there. Yeah, I mirrored. I shouldn't mirror my camera, but there I am. And The Grandmother is a 33-minute short film. It's a true film rather than a quick short. And this is where it all comes together. I think this is the first Lynchiverse film for me because it is a film. It is a flat out had a script, had a budget, had actors, it had stuff going on, and it is fantastic. It is about a little boy who wets the bed and is beaten for it by his father, and his father and mother neglect him, and eventually he goes and gets a seed from a catalog to grow a new grandmother so that somebody will love him. And it works. The weird tree motif that we had in Eraserhead, where there's a tree sitting on a side table, that's essentially what the grandmother is. And a big tree grows in an attic where the rain comes through the leaky roof, and out of this huge seed pod pops a Nana. And every time his life gets crazy, he goes upstairs, which apparently his parents don't notice, because for them he's just, he's there in the morning to beat on when he wets the bed, and he's there to fuss over when he's eating food. But the neat part about this is that even though there's a script, there is no dialogue. Or rather, the dialogue is that super stylized Charlie Brown stuff.
I was gonna say there's sort of dialogue. His parents have Charlie Brown voices,
Yeah.
where well, and a more unpleasant version of the Charlie Brown voices, I would say, where instead of just being a wah 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 wah, it's more of a like
Yeah,
literally
exactly.
that.
Yeah, boy, this movie, I tell you, it had sound, it had color, it had sharpness. Made the thing for about a little over $7,000, but he originally pitched it as being a $5,000 film. It just took more to get it produced, especially with the audio and the weird colors. It has a crazy through line. I don't know if we want to spoil it or not, but why
Go
I
ahead and
say
spoil it.
we want to spoil it.
Spoil away.
All right, we want to spoil it. So the kid grows a grandmother from a seed, and he doesn't know what to do with a grandmother because he's never had one. So, like the puppy that you don't feed right, the grandmother eventually sickens and dies. But I think more the grandmother sickens and dies because of the toxic interference of his parents. And so he finally had this one thing in his life that he could love and would love him. And because his parents are such a-holes, the grandmother sickens and dies.
That was my read on it, actually.
Yeah. But then he has a dream where the grandmother is alive in a cemetery and smiling at him and waving at him and beckoning at him. And I think they beat that kid to death. And then he went to join his grandmother, the only person who ever loved him. And they live in the weird Lynchian afterlife where everything goes white.
Yeah, I have no argument with that. I do think that the kid is dead at the end
Yeah.
and has gone to join his grandmother.
He got to join his grandmother. So it's 30 minutes, 33 minutes. It's really, really good. And again, this is a step in his career. He did this for the American Film Institute. And then a whole crop of people had done films in 1970 for them. But Lynch's film, The Grandmother, they couldn't categorize it. They couldn't put it with this film or show it over here. And because of that, they said, yeah, he needs to go to the Advanced Film Studies Center. He has He has done everything that can be done with us. He needs to go hang out with the filmmakers. And that's where he spent essentially the next 7 years at the Center for Advanced Film Studies. It was in Beverly Hills, and while he was there, they started making Eraserhead. In the middle of making Eraserhead, though, when they had run out of money, and essentially Lynch was living on the sets and in the crazy, weird carriage house in which they shot Eraserhead, one of the people that he worked with got access to a whole bunch of film stock. A couple different kinds of film stock. And they made Eraserhead essentially with remaindered film. But they didn't know which film to use. And so they shot a movie twice. They wrote a script. Catherine Coulson, the log lady, who was married to Jack Nance, Eraserhead himself. They wrote a script overnight. They came and they filmed it the next day. They filmed it twice for about 4 minutes each time with crazy special effects. And it's called The Amputee because it's Catherine Coulson sitting in a chair. Essentially, she's in a cutout chair and there's severed leg puppets. And she is voiceovering as she writes a letter. And the nurse, David Lynch, comes in to clean her stumps. And there are two versions of this on two different kinds of film stock. One of them is far more extreme than the other because it has crazy spurting blood. And kooky stuff is going on with the legs, but the voiceover is in her head and in our ears because it was recorded separately all the way through. And she is talking about some weird stuff. She may also have killed somebody for all we know. It seems like it to me.
Oh, see, that's interesting. I actually did not go there with her letter at all. I thought that at least my read on it was that the intent was a dramatic contrast between the very prosaic letter and rather tedious letter,
Yeah.
where she's just talking about, this person got mad at me for saying this, and I don't think that was right. And,
Yeah.
in contrast to what's being done with the stumps, which, as you observe, at least in one version, gets quite grotesque. Um, so yeah, I didn't read the letter as implying any kind of violence or anything. So interesting.
Right. Yeah. It's weird, but it's a testament, right? What can you do in 24 hours? Well, you can do this, and you can do it twice because you've got the
Yes.
cameras, you've got everything, and
It's funny. I watched both versions, but I didn't see a huge difference in the effect based on the film stock. Like, I don't remember thinking, "Oh, that one looks blah blah blah." I noticed that the events were a little bit different, but I didn't notice that. I didn't
yeah,
notice a huge difference in the film stock.
the events are a little different. One's about 50 minutes, 50 seconds longer, and it's got more blood to it. I could definitely tell the difference in the grain. I've got really nice monitors.
I guess what I mean is I could tell a difference, but it didn't seem like a big
It wasn't a huge
significant. It didn't
difference,
seem.
no.
Yeah.
And since the audio is the same for both, right? So it's all post-production audio. It works fairly well. But we've got. She's the first recurring actor we've got, rather. If you don't count Lynch himself.
Yes. I
But
did not realize that the log lady was married to Jack Nance.
yep.
I I'm behind on my Lynchian lore.
Yeah, in fact, I was I was on the Catherine Coulson page, and I'll go to that. So here we are. Yeah. So Catherine Coulson was born in Illinois, grew up in Southern California. Her father was a radio and television producer, and her mother was a ballet dancer. And she has a Bachelor of Arts from Scripps College. So she met Lynch in 1971, and they started working together on Eraserhead, specifically on Eraserhead, and that's why she was available to write the script for this. She she sadly passed in 2015. Also into transcendental meditation, and meditated about the same time as Lynch did for mostly the same reasons. But while they were filming Eraserhead, David Lynch had a dream where she was holding a large log up to her head. And that is the character that he wrote for her for Twin Peaks.
I seem to remember reading that her real life cancer was used in Twin Peaks: The Return.
It was, yeah. Yeah, she passed in 2015. Twin Peaks: The Return did not go out until 2017. And she was only available for X amount of episodes. So she was in 5 episodes total, but not 5 concurrent ones. So they split her characters up a lot. And there are some of it she's only on audio, right? She's on the phone talking to Hawk rather. Michael Horse is the actor's name. Hawk is the character's name. But my log has a message for you. So yes, the log is a message for me. Let's do this.
Actually, I don't know if we're going to talk about any of his television, but one of the things in Twin Peaks: Return, I love the relationship between Hawk and Margaret.
I do too.
It's one of my favorite things in The Return.
I really liked it because there's continuity there, but we don't need to see it. We just need to know that they have a relationship of some sort. Because they had a relationship in the original series, and they had a relationship here at the end of her life, right? Where there's stuff that happened in between there. And despite several, what I call flaws of The Return, especially the addition of Bobby, I thought it was really nice that all of the major cast members who weren't psychopathic murderers were able to come back and return and add a little closure to their original roles. And even though some of it's only a one click bit, right? There's one scene with Shelley, who also had cancer. It's hard to get through and do stuff with. I certainly want to talk about Twin Peaks. The format we used for that, I'm not sure. Whether we do one episode an episode, or we do 2 or 3 episodes, or maybe we do a whole disc an episode, I don't know. But it's certainly, I think it's very important to talk about that, much as I think it's important to talk about his other TV show that he did that barely made a season. That wasn't Twin Peaks. So I think it'd be really good to talk about those things going forward.
Okay.
Which leads us to our coming soon. We talked in general about watching Dune. It's a 1984 movie. There are at least 3 different versions of the movie, possibly more. But there is the theatrical cut. There's the TV extended version. And then there are 2 different fan edits by a guy called Spice Diver. I think he's a German film fan. And I kind of want to watch them all again. So the reason why this fan edit is significant is because Lynch disavowed the TV extended cut. It was made without his knowledge. It was made from unreleased material, unfinished material, and it really, at one point, it has a whole bunch of sketches with a giant voiceover. So that's the TV version. and it isn't much longer. It has some fantastic imagery in it, some great shots, especially more stuff on Arrakis. And this Spice Cypher fan edit takes out all the stuff Lynch didn't like and cuts in the deleted scenes where they belong. And so it comes in under 3 hours, but it's a more complete picture of what he was trying to do. I mean, Lynch wanted to make a 6.5 hour movie, right? But they said, no, you can't do that. And so he cut it and cut it and cut it and cut it until we got what the theatrical cut was. And then out of nowhere, for a television, an unannounced television showing. I mean, I caught it live. And I saw, what's going on? Dune's going to be on TV? Oh, wow. And it wasn't the movie that I'd seen in theaters. It was something completely different. It's like, oh, wow. And I was able to get that on DVD when it first came out and watch it for a while. In fact, I couldn't get the theatrical cut on DVD for a long time. I could only get that extended cut. And then I loaned it out and I never had it again. So I had to get the Blu-ray if I wanted to watch Dune again. Actually, I got the HD DVD, and then I got a DVD, and then I got a Blu-ray of the theatrical cut, and then I was able to get that Steelbook extended edition again. So I've got all three versions here, and I've got them all up on my server. So we're going to have access to all of them if we want to do this. But
Dune party!
Do the party. Woo! And I think also we should talk about the three other versions of Dune, and how they were informed by Lynch's version. So there's the Jodorowsky version, which was never filmed. It only exists in flipbook form and in documentary form. There's the Sci-Fi Channel version, which expands on some concepts. And then there's the latest Alfonso Cuarón version. And I think the sci-fi and big budget one from a couple years ago have got a lot that they owe to David Lynch, because Lynch wasn't afraid of the source material. He had never read it before he started making the movie. And then he read a movie and said, oh, I can do that. And there's a universe where we get to see everything that he wanted to do on screen. But those shots were never made. Those shots were never cut right. I'm going to talk about this a lot more when we do that episode. But these short films got us to Eraserhead, and then got us to The Elephant Man. And then The Elephant Man got us to Dune. And after that, he could write his own ticket. He could have done Star Wars. Right? This is an important thing to know.
Imagine Star Wars is directed by David Lynch. Oh my god.
They wanted him to do Empire Strikes Back or Return of the Jedi. And he says, no, I'm really busy. I'm doing some good stuff. And those gigs went to other people. But he was doing Dune, so he couldn't do Return of the Jedi. But he was on the short list for Empire Strikes Back because he knew George Lucas. They essentially went to film school together, and they were working their movies at the same time. And Lucas knew what he could do. And Lucas ended up directing it himself, and got into a bidding war with 20th Century Fox and Ralph Bakshi, because Ralph Bakshi was finishing Wizards at the same time. And,
oh my gosh.
As Lucas was filming Star Wars. So they both ran out of money, and Lucas could finish his movie for less than Bakshi could finish his movie. And so,
wow.
At least that's what he said. He was lying. But he was able to get the funding and cut a bunch of stuff out, which we now see in deleted scenes. Like most of the Tatooine plot is gone in his Star Wars. That's, David Lynch could have done that. And David Lynch with an original script, we know exactly what he can do. So it's kind of fun to see
Yeah.
the origins of Lynch, again, no longer with us, like most of the folk involved. We're going to be talking in memoriam about a lot of people as we go forward in this process. But that's what we've got. Okay. Do you have any final thoughts about these short films? Because there are two other short films that we'll probably talk about later on, in adjunct to other movies on our list.
Final thoughts. Yeah, I had to start coughing in honor of David Lynch.
I'm just gonna smoke another cigarette. That'll be fine.
I should do a fake cigarette on these. Um, uh, yeah, like video smoke. Um, but as far as that goes, I thought the grandmother was a really important Eraserhead precursor. I also thought it was interesting how much the kid in it looks like in Twin Peaks. When there's a scene where she goes into a house of the Meals on Wheels people, and there's an old lady in the bed, and she has her grandson is there, and there's a bit with some creamed corn.
Yeah.
Anyway, the son in that, I mean, it's so many years later, it can't possibly be the same kid. And it also doesn't really look like the same kid, but he has the same look. That kind of very prematurely adult, almost like he's a very young David Lynch, wearing a suit and acting peculiar for a kid, like not really acting like a child.
I tell you, until those final seconds, I thought that might have been Dale Cooper. Right? That could be Dale Cooper's origin story as the grandmother. This crazy stuff that he'd seen, and he ends up being the crazy, spooky FBI guy.
It does feel very much like it's part of the greater Lynchian shared universe.
Yeah.
That's
And since
and I think the theme, yeah.
from Fire Walk with Me and from The Return, we know that there are alternate universes that shift in and out of the other place. And so the grandmother, I think, ties right in. There's a weird tree for certain. Weird trees are what the other place is all about. And the log lady's legs from the amputee could be part of the weird place, right? Because the arm turns into something.
Yes.
So those legs could have turned
True.
into something for all we know. Definitely these films informed Twin Peaks, which is 1990. It's from here. It's 26 years later. 26 years later. 16 years later. It's 16 years after the amputee and Eraserhead that Twin Peaks kicks off, and in that time he'd done 3 or 4 different commercial films and a TV show that didn't do anything. I keep bringing that up, and I'm going to bring up the name of it here. Short film, blah 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 blah. He's done a lot of short films. All right, so he did a show called On the Air with Mark Frost, where 2 episodes happened, and then he did a show called Hotel Room, and they are On the Air was a sitcom with 7 episodes, most of which didn't show in the United States, and Hotel Room was an anthology series that was on HBO. So, like the Twilight Zone, it was. We're gonna cover it for sure, but those are they're post Twin Peaks, but they're really precursors. He had lined all those gigs up. He had got all that stuff squared away before Twin Peaks was a reality, and they just took a while to get together. and they'll have all of our usual suspects. So we'll definitely be covering television work, film work. There are dozens and dozens and dozens of short films in the catalog, and a lot of them aren't easily accessible, but I'm sure I can find them eventually. But these are all the next big one is called The Cowboy and the Frenchman, which is a 1988 work, and it is it's available on a specific DVD collection called The Short Films of David Lynch, which I don't have, and it's really expensive, but I'm gonna get it. I'm gonna figure out how to get it.
All right. Determined.
I am determined. Well, that's where we are. Yes, so those are our thoughts. Excellent. Welcome.
Well, and I'm actually, I really appreciated you prompting me to see these early short films of David Lynch because I had actually never seen them before.
Excellent.
So,
No, it's I think they're important. They are important. Well, this is
and
us
I do
signing.
agree with you that The Grandmother is particularly good.
Oh yeah, it's so good. I would watch it again. As creepy as it is, I would watch it again. I mean, I'm not sure I would watch. Like, we're coming up on some transformative films, right? Like Lost Highway and Mulholland Drive, that I've only ever seen once because they're so messed up. But The Grandmother, equally messed up, but I would watch it again because there's so much to pick out. You know, they're little bits deep in the frame that you can look at and go, ooh, that over there, ooh, that over there, ooh, what are they? What's in that bowl? The use of color, the use of the sound, it's just a superior film. You could definitely see why it basically made his bones as a director, is being able to do that film well and impressing people. Okay. Well, that's it, everybody. Thank you for playing. I'm going to put some links up here to both our past videos and stuff that's going to be coming up. The playlist of So Here's the Deal. This is not going out on Twitch. This is our first purely recorded stream, and we'll probably keep with this format for a while and see how it works for us. Thank you very much. And I am signing off. I am Scott James Magner. You can find me on the internet.
And I'm Julie McGalliard, McJulie, most places.
Most places. Excellent. Thank you, everyone, and I will see you later.